Morning, friends. The birds are calling to me. They're outside the window just singing their hearts out. And when I finish up here, I'm going to go outside and weed some tomatoes, pick some berries. It's a beautiful day in western Tennessee, and I'm looking forward to the blessings of the day. You know, when Darlene and I were living in Atlanta, we didn't spend a lot of time together. You know, she was off in these classes in school. I took these classes. She had her job. I had mine. You know, she had some of her friends. I had mine. It's just, it wasn't a life spent together. And that was the normal traditional life. But when we got to Mentone, pulled up on that long driveway, that school in nature, the classroom in nature, that long driveway. You know, when we got there, got settled in that station wagon, you know, when I'd go to bed at night, last thing I'd see is my wife's face. I'd wake up in the morning, first thing I see is Darlene's face. Breakfast, Darlene's face. We go to work out in the garden or building on the house, Darlene. Lunchtime, Darlene. In the afternoon, Darlene. It was like full-time exposure to my wife. I never had that before, and you know what? I liked it. I liked spending time with my wife. Now, we weren't Christians, but I was seeing some of the plan God had in Genesis 2:24, these two shall become one flesh. That a man, when he's with his wife, feels very comfortable. He didn't have to put on airs. You know, he can be himself. It's as if he's with his second self. When he's with her, it's as if he's all alone. The comfort level is that high. And I was beginning to experience that as we spent time together. Now, back in the city, we had plenty of problems. You know, we had the traditional problems. We had debts, had to worry about our jobs, getting fired, or insurance if we had health issues. And, you know, we had school, and we had all of these different challenges. And it seemed like most of these would kind of have an influence to drive us apart. But when we settled into the driveway in the Ford station wagon, it was a different kind of challenge. Now we were living in a station wagon and sleeping together in a small car. By the way, a house and a home were very different. That car was a home. You can live in a palace, that's a house, but it doesn't make it a home. It's the folks inside the house that really make it a home, and I never had really a home before. I mean, Darlene and I, we were kind of estranged. We didn't have a good marriage, but when we got up into the car, kind of got confined together, started getting to know each other, and started to develop a relationship we'd never had before, you know, the car became a home. So this was a different kind of challenge. You know, by the way, we had surround sound, all the birds and everything coming into the windows. We had a panoramic video, but it wasn't video, it was real life nature. So we were surrounded by windows in the car, and we could look out, we see the trees, we see natural things, the wind is blowing and the birds are singing. Now it's winter time, so it's not quite like it is in the spring and the summer, because when we got there it was cold. But it was an interesting experience. So here was a challenge that was driving us together rather than separating us. And I began to see that these problems that we endured in the city, that we suffered in the city, we had a different set of challenges and problems in the country. But these were uniting us, drawing us together, whereas those challenges in the city, they were kind of separating us. It was a different caliber of problem. It was something real. It was challenges of life, you know, how to succeed in living. You know, food to eat, roof over your head, clothes to wear. It was different. It was exciting. It was real. And it was kind of drawing us together. Now, we still had plenty of problems. You know, we didn't know God, but things were beginning to happen. We didn't know God, but God knew us. And I know His purpose. When Darlene and I got married, I know His purpose was to unite our hearts with His and to draw us to Him. Now, it's a long, protracted, drawn-out process to bring a soul to a point of conversion and transformation. But this was the beginning of the long road home. So the station wagon, you know, it was home. Now, what it lacked was a bathroom. And Darlene and I, when we got there, you know, job one was to build a house, because the home was, you know, the station wagon was great, but we wanted a little more space to build a house and to try to get a garden underway. Of course, that's food, that's shelter, these are the essentials of life. And so we were working in the daytime, and it was winter. And what we did, there was nothing up there, hardly, just an old shed and a little pump house, just a little wooden shack. We got a space heater. We'd rigged up a little electricity, got a space heater, put it in that shed, and we'd build out of this book and just freeze. And we'd huddle up in the little shack together with the space heater on, trying to warm up. That was cozy. That was warm. That drew us together. That was warm in more ways than one. So we were in the little shack together, warming up, then we go back and we build. But after, 8 or 10 hours of that in the winter, you still you need a bath. You need some kind of, bath. So Darlene and I, we walked down where we were building our house up on top of a hill, a small hill. At the bottom of the hill, there was this beautiful creek. Now you could stick your toe in the creek and it would almost freeze. This is up on top of the mountain. This is Lookout Mountain. It's a beautiful mountaintop. It's very scenic, very natural, very cold. It would snow in the winter. I was from Atlanta. It wasn't that cold there. You could put your toe in the creek and it was cold. Went down, tested the water out, and I told Darlene, here's a bathtub. We could just jump in here. This is like, skinny dipping in the winter. I don't know if that's legal in some places, but on our property, nobody would see it. I said, we could just jump in here. And Darlene thought, I don't know what she thought. That was a chilling idea for her. But, we needed a bath. And so what we did at the end of the day, we got a little pot, like a 2-quart pot. We'd boil water in it. And we went down to the creek. Now, this little video I took last summer. Again, I'm going back in 2 or 3 weeks, take some more pictures, more videos. This is a video I took last summer. And it was reminiscent. It brought to my mind the nice memories of taking a bath in that creek. Of course, at the time it was chilling. It was a challenge. It was a life-changing experience. It was a drawing together of a husband and a wife. But looking back on it, it was just all warmth and good memories because the Lord was doing something for us. So this is the creek where we took our bath. When Darlene and we moved up here, we were living in a car. Darlene was trying to work the soil to begin a garden. I had a book trying to build a little cabin, and it was the time. At the end of the day, we needed a bath, and so we found this creek down here. In the wintertime, it has water. It's flowing pretty good level. We came down and took a little pot, like you cook with, and Darlene said, "You go first." So I jumped in there, took the pot, poured water over my head. And I tell you, friends, that was one of the fastest baths man's ever taken. And then, of course, Darlene jumped in next, and it was, needless to say, it was refreshing. Not an experience I want to repeat today, but back then it's just what we needed. The more real living close to the land. There was no pomp and circumstance. There was no a surface experience. We were sweating, getting dirty, taking our bath in the creeks, cooking on a little stove as the cabin went up and the crops came in. It was a life-changing experience. We got here in this little cabin on the hill and this little creek down in the valley. We used to come down here and wash clothes. I washed clothes in this creek for 10 years, just by hand. And I didn't know that, a few years later, 10 years later, I'd be washing clothes over in rivers in Southeast Asia, working as a missionary for Christ. But He knew when I was here what the future held for me and for my wife. So I thank the Lord that He sees the end from the beginning, and He plans and He purposes to give us a life in Him that is better than anything we could ever have on this earth without Him. And so, friends, that's cold weather skinny dipping. And it was always refreshing at the end of the day. Though it may be 35 degrees, it was refreshing. We'd come out of that creek, and I think I would go first most of the time. We'd come out of the creek, and Darlene would throw me the towel. We'd get dried off, get back up to the station wagon, lay down together. We'd see the stars, just lay there together, enjoying the company of each other. And it was a good experience. Something that I got in that creek, that was winter when we started taking our baths. and the banks were kind of gray. You know, it was wintertime. There were no leaves. There were everything, nothing green. It was kind of a dreary-looking gray. But when spring came, you see the little flowers, hepaticas. You see a little green on the trees, the leaves coming out. You begin to see a change in the seasons. And I call it the spring green. And the birds are singing, and it's starting to get a little warmer. The baths are becoming a little more bearable, a little more pleasant. And then spring gives way to summer. And in the summer, you know, it's hot. And the water's starting to feel good. And the flowers are beginning to change. Now there's summer flowers. And the birds are just, they're like part of the family now. And then as summer, in those long hot months, gives way to the fall, then you have the bull thistle and the goldenrod, and you have ironweed, different flowers. And you can see there is a change in the seasons. And then fall, you know, September, October, and then the leaves begin to fall again. And after 1 year, I'm in that creek. And I'm looking now, 1 year later, at the same scenes I'd been witnessing the year before. Everything is a little gray and dreary. It's the winter look of the creek. But my dear friends, I got a lesson. I could see there was order in nature. One season followed after another. 1 Corinthians 14:40, let all things be done decently and in order. God is not the author of confusion. God is the author of order. And I started getting these spiritual lessons. So in the car, in the creek, at the building site, you know, in the garden, just spiritual lessons. I wouldn't have called them spiritual lessons back then. I wouldn't even have called them any lesson at all. But I was unconsciously seeing and hearing and experiencing things it was changing our lives. Slowly but surely it was changing our lives. And as the years passed, well, that's for later. God bless you, my friends. You have a nice day. And may this day bring you the blessings that your heart desires. In other words, may God give you the desire of your heart.